Good evening. The last time I stood here was 2 years ago when I received a commendation from y'all for service to Kootenai County and keeping taxes low and providing a few extra freedoms. I'll try to remember my speech. I've been accused of having Alzheimer's in the past, but we'll see if I can get it long enough to make a speech. So I'm going to run for Legislative District 3, the Senate office. We talk about property taxes, and those are some very good points that both Mr. Delavan and Mr. Stewart put out. But there's also problems in Boise, and that's where a lot of the property taxes stem from. Unfunded mandates, you might see that on my card. What's an unfunded mandate? It's something that the legislature of the state of Idaho, who has no idea what they're doing to the county, put out as a free gift to the county. Now, having served on the board of directors of the Idaho Association of Counties for 2 years, and that's because I was a commissioner of Kootenai County and the chairman of the board, I learned a lot of things down there. These unfunded mandates are affecting every single county. I'll give you an example of an unfunded mandate that's present today. We're going to get 13 new public defenders, and it could change, but that's the goal at this point in time, is 13 new public defenders for free. Because the Idaho legislature is trying to figure out what to do if the ACLU wins their lawsuit against Idaho not having sufficient public defense. What does that mean? It means I think they should probably step back and take a look and man up and tell the ACLU to pound sand. The state of Maryland has 113 felony cases per public defender. The state of Idaho is somewhere around 110, 114. That information is from 2 years ago. So we're right on par. Why did they pick Idaho? Bunch of backwoods country bumpkins is what my guess would be for the ACLU. Had a 2.5-hour deposition. So the public defense, the free public defenders that we're gonna get, that's about $1.3 million worth of public defenders. Now, also the prosecuting attorney's office by statute is supposed to keep parity. So does that mean that Barry McHugh is gonna get 13 new prosecuting attorneys to be able to equal the amount of staff that the public defense office has? That'll be another 1.3 million. I had lunch with Barry McHugh, the prosecutor of Kootenai County, probably 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. He thinks he can do it with 2 prosecuting attorneys. But there's also staff. And if the Public Defense Commission withdraws their funding, we're still stuck with all these public defenders. Well, in addition to staff, there's also computers, there's desks, there's chairs, there's computer programs, and guess what? There's also a place to put them. So that free public defense that they would provide to us would probably end up being probably about $500,000 to $750,000 out of the Kootenai County taxpayers' pockets to cover for the extras that are needed for the public defenders and the 2 prosecuting attorneys. Where do you put them at? Is it a $1 million building? Is it a $2 million building? Is it a $3 million building? And at the same time, the state of Idaho gave us 2 new judges. And guess what? We don't have a choice. Where do you put the judges at? Now in this room right here, if this was private sector, you could probably put about 20 office spaces in here with cubicles. Judges don't like cubicles. Judges are special. They need a room that's about, you might get 3 judges' office in this room. And we get those for free. Plus, then we have the staff, it's their support staff, plus we have all their computers and all that good kind of stuff. How much does that cost? So there's free money from the state of Idaho, this free service. You're probably looking at close to, without the building, you're probably looking at another $250,000, maybe more. And guess who dictates the budgets to the counties from the district courts that's provided by the state? The county does. It's not a county employee that tells us how much money we spend. That's one of the things on there. Unfunded mandates, there's other parts. You want lower property taxes? Well, there's a whole can of worms over there. When you have, if you can put, somebody last time I was here talked about impact fees. And impact fees, that's transferring the tax burden to somebody else. URDs take money out of the taxing authority of the county. Treasurer Matheson has done a great job of explaining that to the last month and a half, 2 months. And are the commissioners listening? Not very well, and I was pretty reluctant. But when those tax dollars come out, what replaces them if you still have the same services? And in the URD, I'll give you an example. I'm aware of a URD that's gonna have about 700 new homes. All the tax dollars that would come from that subdivision, and that pays for the Post Falls Tech Park too, it's a dream. You're probably gonna lose $300 of assessed property tax value on that subdivision alone. And URDs, when they make those things, they always look for a cash cow to fund it. They don't go off in the middle of the prairie and see Farmer Bob's barn over there that's raising 12 chickens, and he's planning on putting in 12 more hogs to go along with it. They can't get much tax dollars off of 12 extra hogs. It's gotta be new improvement. And even if he puts up a 20 by 20 chicken shed to cover his hogs and his pigs, it's not gonna bring any money in increased growth. So this health corridor that we have going on right now is a perfect example. That is a cash cow. And if there wasn't any cash to be taken from that, they wouldn't be doing it right there. So that's why the need for impact fees, or the thoughts for impact fees, is because it's taken away by something else. When I'm on the board of directors of the Idaho Association of Counties 2.5 years ago, I told those guys, I said, well, this will be my last time here. I got elected out of office, and I'm gonna run for the Idaho Senate, because we need people down here who can understand what's going on and what their decisions are doing to the counties and to the cities. It's killing them. And they were thrilled, because commissioners don't very often go to the Senate or to the legislature, and the simple reason is there's people in this room that I've irritated to all the pieces. And sometimes it was deserved, but you still have these animosities that grow. Commissioners said to be the most difficult job in the nation. And I commend anybody that runs for county commissioner, because it's not an easy job. That's why they were excited about me going to Boise. And they're still gonna be that way when I get down there, because they don't have a voice. They can't explain these things, because nobody at the state level understands what this free money is actually costing the county. I'll stop there.
All right. Questions? Mr. Eberlein? Oh, yeah. Go ahead.
Mark, I was given a couple questions. They knew you were going to be speaking tonight, so I'll ask for them. And are you now part of Chuckleberry's?
No.
Okay, do you know?
Never have been.
You never have?
I think the first accusation I got came from Mr. Blaine over there, and that was about 2012 or whenever they started up.
Okay.
I am not Chuckleberry's, I am not Boise Police, I don't have time for that kind of food for thought.
Okay.
Second question?
Well, the other part was, do you disavow what's been written? Do you read Chuckleberry's?
On occasion.
Okay, so I guess there's been some.
I think it gets pretty cheesy with the stuff that people throw, because when they're throwing half-truths, you know, there's a lot of half-truths that get thrown, and there's even been some thrown in this room tonight.
Yeah.
And those kind of half-truths don't work, and it doesn't win friends and influence people.
So okay, that's basically what they wanted to know.
Yep.
Very good, thank you, sir. Eric?
Yes or no?
I voted for Donald Donald Trump. 2016.
I know you did.
And I stuck my hand up in the air and I said, who else voted for Donald Trump in the primary? Not everybody stuck their hands up in the air. So just for your information, my wife and I just filled our absentee ballots on and circled the box that said Donald Trump.
All right, anyone else? Any questions?
Well, nobody, you were accused of corruption just like 10 minutes ago. Nobody's going to ask you about it?
We love that for you. There's an interesting thing. I would love to talk about a lot of things. I can't talk about employment records with Kootenai County. I have no animosity whatsoever towards Greg Gelvin. I think he's a good man. He's a church-going man, but I can't address any of those issues. And then when it comes to things like the allegations that were made over a certain convent, can't discuss it at all. Not even to give you the idea of where it might be. I think Dan Green is one fine man. He's honest, he's generous, and I do know that he wrote a check to make it all go away because everything, it wasn't gonna go to their benefit otherwise. And I think you're sort of a religious guy. I think you're in a schismatic side of the Catholic Church, but that's okay. So, if you want to, Bjorn, you can snoop around, and I'm sure you could find out who they happen to be, and you could probably go speak with them, and they would probably set the record straight. But it cannot come from my mouth, or anybody else's that's in office, or anybody else that took the oath of office and pledged to uphold those laws. Yes, sir.
Subject change. I want to talk about illegal aliens. Perfectly serviceable word. It's in our U.S. Constitution. Some municipalities are very contemptuous of ICE, and they're trying to keep ICE from doing the job, boarding Greyhound buses and so forth. If you were to go to the Idaho legislature, what would you do about municipalities possibly coming to a theater near you? I'm thinking about progressive ones like Moscow, Idaho. If they defy ICE agents, what would you do?
I think, well, that's gonna take some legislation down there to force them to stop. But you know, there's that old saying, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. And so when John Law or the National Guard or somebody goes up to that's Moscow West, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, they have Gorky Park, we have Portland
I
Park.
got that, and refugees is a similar situation. When you take the Kurds, there's Zoroastrians, they're not even Muslims, they're Zoroastrians. And the Muslims hate them, and Christians, and they don't get along. Refugees and illegal aliens, a lot of times, are pretty much one and the same. Now,
But what about your background would qualify you to operate in that arena?
well, I used to wear badge for a while, and I've had to deal with some of that stuff. I've had a good many friends who were border patrol agents and customs agents, and
Have you been bored?
to the border?
Yes.
Which one?
One question, please.
Yes, I have.
That's fine, thank you. Mr. Rasmussen, and then we're done.
Thank you.
Well, I just like to
Yes, I'm
settle,
ready to build the wall.
I just like to settle this once and for all. Mark, are you corrupt?
Well, Dwayne, I've never known to be a liar, and the answer is I am not corrupt.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Eberlein, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.